has Meghan Markle's victim racist narrative completely collapsed? Today we are talking about the very, very epic Takedown of Meghan Markle by comedian Chris Rock. Yes, he talked about her for about 4 minutes in a stand-up routine. He deviated and talked about a couple other things as well. But he often said, and it was just fascinating to see somebody who really should be on Meghan's side have really no sympathy for her whatsoever. He even questions her intelligence, her intentions, all these sorts of things regarding the royal family, and I think it really highlights that Meghan's racism victimization narrative, it's gone. Nobody buys it anymore, and I think Chris Rock put to words with so many people are thinking. So we're going to unpack that, in addition to apparently some emergency talks that Harry and Meghan had with Tyler Perry, who was a godfather, a baby little bit, and also said that he would not go to England for her christening because the racist. But his meeting with Harry and Meghan, I think, is indicative of what a bad situation that they're in. Their favorability is a new poll just came out today, again showing that keep tanking. Not only that is their negative score. So how many people between November 30th and March 3rd, I think, took the survey and said that they disliked Harry and Meghan? It was worse for them than it was for Prince Andrew, and if Harry and Meghan aren't in an absolute full-on meltdown, panic, then they need to get into that right now, because I don't think they have much of a future in Hollywood, and I think people like Chris Rock will applaud. So we are going to talk about all this today, but if you guys haven't been here to borrow a news network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling real commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little gossip too. In addition, I will be reviewing television shows and movies, ensuring a bit about history too. If you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. We surpassed 100,000 and I'm so excited. I ordered my plaque, guys. And I'm also getting in the process of getting a cake ordered, like a specialty cake, because I want to have a little mini celebration, because I think this is super cool. I'll do an unboxing with the plaque and I'm just so excited. So if you guys want to continue on this journey, because there are more plaques to earn. So I just can't wait to continue growing and growing and growing this channel, guys. There's gonna be so many things coming this year. I have a lot of travel planned. I really want to go and get a lot of content, go to a lot of events, and I can do that all because of you guys. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It is amazing to get to do what I love and hopefully be able to do a lot more interviews. You guys really love those. I'd love to interview some royals as well, so I'll be trying to see who may be available. I'm sure it will be peripheral members first, and hopefully can grow into some of the more private members of different families, and hopefully maybe even the British. Don't have strong hopes for that yet, but some point in the future we will get there. So guys, I'm so excited for you all to come with me on this journey. I'll actually be going to the UK this week. I'm getting some prep work done for the coronation, so some B-roll and different things. I'll also be getting some fashion content. So I'm really excited to share with you guys, and I'll be attempting to blog better this time. I tried it last year during the coronation and I was not very successful, but this time, guys, we are really going to try. So I am super excited to share with you guys my trip. Hopefully maybe I'll have a little vlog for every day. Hope you guys really enjoy it, because it should be a lot of fun, and I'll have other videos connected with it as well. I'm just so extremely excited. So guys, again, thank you so much. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and also have a couple other things. I have a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire. I also have a fashion channel, so I'll put a link to that. That one's on a bit of a hiatus, but should be back soon. And I also have a trip to the UK that did already sell out, so you could go with me to London and the Cotswolds. So there's a wait list in case somebody drops off, but I will also have a couple other trips in the works. one is to Germany and Austria and the other one is to Scotland, and those will probably happen in August-September timeframe. And so those will be really, really amazing, and usually for royal watching, August is pretty slow, but the Austrian-Germany one, there's a ton of castles involved in it. So I'm so excited. Some of them I've been to, some of them I haven't, includes Neuschwanstein, which is the Cinderella castle in Germany. It's very, very famous. So if you guys are interested in that, as soon as I have details or the release date or whatever, I will let you guys know. And before we get into the whole Meghan Markle Chris Rock thing, we do have Princess Madeleine news. She's one of my favorite royals to watch. She actually lives here in Florida, but the Swedish royal court just announced today that she and her family are going to be relocating back to Sweden, and so they actually did live in Sweden for a period of time. They started out in New York, Swiss city, her and her husband, and they moved to Sweden and then to London, or maybe it was London and then Sweden and then to Florida, and now apparently they're moving back to Sweden, and so I'm excited to see her at more formal events. So this is state dinners and the Nobel Prize ceremony that happens every December. So that's really interesting. She did it in part because to be in the line of succession, part of the requirement is that they need to be in a Swedish school learning Swedish and everything like that, and so she couldn't totally fulfill that in Florida. I felt they had maybe amended that so she could still continue with her kids in Florida, but no, they have moved over that order is still in place. So in order to make sure her children get their birthright, essentially she is moving them back to Sweden. And it's such an interesting comparison between Madeleine and Harry, because Madeleine is youngest child of the king and she has lived a very, very private life here in Florida. She pops up at engagements from time to time locally, but it's been pretty minimal. We only see her every couple of months maybe. Whereas Harry is trying to make his Hollywood thing work and is not working at all, and because he has damaged his relationship with his family to such an extent, his children, who should rightly probably have the title of prince and princess, will probably deny it because they don't need it. And I have argued before as well that I think the letters of patent do need to be amended to say if you have a royal title, you must live in the UK, or as your children must have a royal title. You must live in the UK, because having a prince and princess of the UK and Los Angeles makes absolutely zero sense. And so I am just excited. Although kind of sad, because I wanted to interview Madeleine about her time here in the United States. I'll still probably request that and see if it's possible, because I just think it would be really interesting to hear her thoughts about her time here with her children and her family. So hopefully maybe that'll come about. And before we talk again about Harry and Meghan, let's talk about the related poll results, which are rather interesting. So this poll looks at a couple of things. So says their favorability in November versus their favorability now, and the difference is A- or plus depending on what people chose. And so when you're looking at this, obviously Catherine remains the most popular royal, next behind her is William, and they both had a bit of decreases after Harry's book came out. But you know who damaged Harry and Meghan more from their realities show and Harry's book? Because they initially pulled in November to get these results. Now we have new ones. Why? It's Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan are experiencing more damage from themselves than the royal family is now the royal family. They've taken a hit, but not as much as Harry and Meghan, and I think Chris Rock identifies why not directly. He doesn't say directly, well, they're not popular because of X reason, but he's identifying the hypocrisy the Harry and Meghan exhibit that really is starting to wear very, very thin in their victim narrative. Its bandwidth has shrunk as time goes on because people don't believe them anymore, and because people don't believe them, people don't like them quite as much. They find them to be complaining, narcissistic, hypocritical, all these sorts of things. And you look at a family too and you understand that, yes, families have tough times, but what Harry and Meghan have done, was there any reason for that? No, not really. And the rest of the world is catching up to it, and I think Chris Rock put to words what so many of us are thinking. And he also talked I think more broadly about how that this victimization cancel culture narrative that people have espoused is starting to slowly disintegrate. People aren't really all that interested in it anymore. So let's go ahead and listen to the first clip here. No. What? And nobody can. You know what? 'Cause you know who might get. I thought that was really interesting for him to start out on, because identifying that people get so easily offended by anything. That you can say anything almost and somebody will take offense to it, and granted that's somewhat life. You can say something that you think is totally innocuous and somebody takes deep offense to that. But this offensive culture that we live in is that some people can even say, well, I have a deeply held religious belief about X and people are so against that, and can we all agree to disagree on certain issues? And what I think is really interesting too is talking about how he's talking about this, knowing he's probably going to offend Meghan Markle, and he really doesn't care, and Meghan should be really worried about that. And as well, if your dog started howling a bit during that clip. My dog started to whine fit while I was filming that. And she was very fussy today. Today was a very fussy day. Normally she sleeps most of the day. Today she was up a lot wanting various things. So yes, that was rather interesting. For marginalized people's getting right. I have a problem with the selective outrage. You know what? I'm talking about one person. Awesome. They can cancel. Somebody else does the exact same thing. No. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing to point out, the selective outrage, because I think it's so true. And you got to think of where Chris Rock is in this situation. He was slapped on national television by Will Smith for really no reason, with Chris Rock is a comedian. He should technically tick people off from time to time. And a mature people just laugh or just kind of roll their eyes at it. It's not supposed to be taken unbelievably seriously because he is a comedian, but Will Smith going up and slapping Chris Rock committing assault, sitting back down, and then getting praised by the crowd about 30 minutes later when he got his Oscar. I think it shows a dichotomy. If it had been, let's say, a white person going up and slapping Chris Rock, everybody would be up in arms. The guy would have been kicked out as soon as humanly possible. So there's a selective outrage, and I'm sure Chris Rock was sitting there in the background and off stage going, this guy slapped me, which almost of these people agree we're all anti-violence, yet he slaps me. Nobody really does anything, and then he gets up on stage and accepts his award, and 30 minutes later and nobody really bats an eye. I'm sure that was so great to him. So you feel this energy, this frustration with how Hollywood basically treated him and Will Smith. It took a while, I feel like, for the negative reaction to come. I think some of it was not understanding that wasn't part of the act. I think some people thought that, but still you think somebody going up and exhibiting some extreme violence against somebody else should have a bit of more of a response than it did. And so I think Chris Rock has pointed out, and you can also say in terms of Harry and Meghan, is that Meghan's all worried about every single article that came out about her and everything, and she fails to recognize that Catherine had also a million negative articles written about her. Catherine has been in the public eye 15 years longer than Meghan Markle. Catherine was stalked, Catherine was harassed. There was a bus with a sign that said that she could see that would taunt her about her relationship with William. She was called all sorts of names by the press, but Meghan Markle just dismisses it because I felt like racism. It's not like racism, so whatever suffering Catherine went through, it doesn't matter because it's not as bad as what I went through now. While I understand that, yes, some things that can happen within, let's say, a racist narrative would be negative. I think what Chris Rock is pointing out, that what she was complaining about really didn't hold. And so, but one more other clip to get to it, because I think there's another thing in here that I do think really applies Harry Meghan. But you can do business. Can tell you about the product no more. They just tell you how much charity they do. Is that we give back. We like to get back. We don't even like the money. We just keep. Is that not Harry and Meghan? Don't think about the product. Think about our charity, our charitable endeavors. Our charity is so important. I mean, I went to a massacre site where children died. But don't think about that. It was just for charity. It wasn't for Netflix. It was for charity when we all knew it was probably for Netflix, and they ended up pulling it because they couldn't choose it because people would react so negatively to it. It's just a bit ridiculous. They emphasize it so much, their charity, but it's like. But what are you guys actually doing? What are you guys actually contributing? That's a huge question. I think one of the funny things he brought up to in this is superior. So there was, I guess, was a deal with Super where if you bought a car they would give $250 to the charity of your choice, and Chris Rock is like, well, why don't they give me $250 off the car? That's what I want more, because if Super is getting giving the charitable donation, they probably get the tax write-off for the charitable donation they gave on your behalf. So it was an interesting thing to consider, but I feel like Harry and Meghan, they want to deflect from everything they do, every negative thing they do, by saying, well, it's for charity. It's for charity. Don't mind that we're trying to destroy the royal family. Don't mind that our children don't have relationship with any other extended family members except for Meghan's mother. None of it matters because we're charitable, and I feel like that's so disingenuous and so dangerous. Charity is important. But charity should not be used as a shield for you to get away with things, as a shield for you to charge exorbitant prices because charity. And I don't think that truly washes and appreciated in pointing that out. Easiest way to get attention. Number 4. Is to be a victim. He's like, oh, where is he going with this? One of the easiest ways to get attention is to be a victim. And now there were 4 reasons. I can't quite remember the other 4, but I think one of them was showing your behind on like Instagram and stuff. Which I understand getting attention that way. But what he's pointing out here is that the victim being a victim gives you currency in today's world, today's culture, and I don't think that's something to celebrate. So you're blaming everybody else for your fault, for your issues. You're taking no accountability, and I don't think those type of people ever really accomplish great things, because when something goes wrong, they blame it on somebody else. That's why Harry and Meghan in part I think are failing so spectacular. They are failing because they put all their eggs in the victim basket instead of trying to create their own brand. Pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. Shutting the royal tiles and going, you know what, we don't need to be the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We're fine being Harry and Meghan because guess what, we got talent, we got gumption. We got guts, and we don't need to lean on the monarchy to get ahead. We don't even need to talk about our Braylon. We're Harry and Meghan. We're going to accomplish great things. We're going to change the world. But to Harry Meghan did that? Of course they don't. Of course they did, because I don't think number 1. I don't think they could anyways. I don't think Meghan's particularly talented, and neither is Harry. Harry's dumb as a brick, in my opinion, and I don't think Meghan is as smart as she thinks. She has finally stretched the imagination because she should have played her cards with so much better than she did, but I think what he's saying there is yes. If you are a victim right now, although I think that's changing as people are getting sick of it, it is a currency, and Meghan has used this to get herself ahead. So let's go into the next club. Going to be a big though. Right. What was this call of Meghan Markle? Oh. Seemed like a nice little bit. Just complaining, and I was like, then she hits the light skin lottery. So I love how Chris Rock can definitely say something I cannot, which is the light skin lottery. I think that is huge. Meghan Markle throughout her career, I think, leaned on the fact that she looked somewhat exotic. But you couldn't tell quite what she could be. Middle Eastern. I first thought she was a Latina or maybe Greek origin, something like that. And so I think she really played off of this. lack of understanding about where her genetic makeup came from, and then once it became currency to really identify with her African American heritage, then she started using it a lot more. This probably happened in about 2014, and since then it's been a currency she could use, and a currently she especially used in the Oprah Winfrey interview because I think it was 21 when she did it. George Floyd had died in 2020, so that sentiment that had been building was still there when she got to that interview, and so she was playing off the motions of people who believed in that narrative that she had spun about racism initially to continue that and say that somebody in the royal family was racist. The light-skinned lottering and still go on off complaining. Act and all dumb, like she'd all know nothing. On Oprah, no idea. Racist day once. So I love here that he calls out her intelligence going, well, what did you think was going to happen? And I don't buy into the royal family racist narrative at all. He goes on to talk about colonialism and everything. A lot of the things he's discussing actually happened 100 plus years ago, so it doesn't really factor into any of the royal family right now. I think, actually Charles is very welcoming, loved her initially and I'm sure he still loves her, but sure it's kind of tense now. So this idea that the royal family was racist, I think is wrong, but I love how he's questioning her intelligence. It's like, well, did you not know? Did you not do anything like what is with you? And I think that's a huge thing. It's like, did she not do any research? We've been told she is intelligent, so why would she not research anything and just awesome? Like I didn't know. And Christopher is like, of course you knew, and again. She knew exactly what buttons to push in the landscape of the United States in 2021 that would get the visceral reaction that she wanted and to get the sympathy that she wanted. That sympathy had an expiration date. It didn't last as long as she was hoping it would because people have seen through the lies and inconsistencies, and I think the real family has done an exceptionally good job of leaving an open door for Harry and Meghan so that there are false narratives all the time because reality shows that it's not really the case. She did it. No. Hey. And then, the original race is a little bit more. And what's interesting throughout this, he goes, what was she thinking? What the F about Meghan all the time, he repeats this line several times. What the F? What the heck? What was she thinking? Why was she thinking X? And again. It goes to show that either she is dumb or she was hoping to get something out of what she was saying. That's why he's identifying. I think there may be not consciously because he may buy into the whole royal family racism narrative, but I think what is interesting is that either her naivete makes sense or it falls apart the more you scrutinize it. And I think that's what's happening is Chris is like, well, didn't you Google? Didn't you research? Didn't you know? Aren't you a smart person? You've told us you've gone to college. You went to a good college. Where is this intelligence we keep hearing about? And I think the idea too that Harry Meghan tried to portray all the time is that well, we're just so in love. This is the most epic love story ever. So love. But that doesn't discount you from using your head, and it's entirely driven with them by emotion. They're driving their whole narrative by emotion, and it doesn't work. This is I didn't know. Like marrying into the blood-wise family. And go and drink a lot. Yes. So yes, the comparison to the Budweiser family. And I think the royal family was incredibly welcoming to Meghan. The issue always was Meghan's personality. It had nothing to do with her genetic makeup or anything like that. It had everything to do though with her personality, with her actions, with how she treated people. That's what got the real like the hairs on the back of their necks stand up as they were watching her and going, she's not treating the staff well. She's not treating us well. She's not treating this whole process the way she should. She seems to be at it for what she can gain for herself, and that is inevitably what she was looking for, as a way to enrich herself, not a way to be part of a family. She talks about, I didn't know. This is they're so racist. They're so racist. She went through, was that right? I don't know. It was just some in-law. So, gentlemen. And then he drops the hammer. What she talked about was not as much discrimination as she's putting on. She's putting on an immense burden. Even though she got the wedding she wanted, she apparently got the tiara. She wanted the dress she wanted. She got to marry Harry in front of the royal family in a huge church, with it being televised all over the world. They didn't accept her. They didn't help her, as she was the victim of racism. Well, I would assume if she was actually the victim of racism, wouldn't they not be allowed to get married, not be allowed to be in the church? You want to be given a tiara. She want to have been given all the things she was, the huge party houses, opportunities, all these sorts of things that the royal family gave her, and she basically spat in their face and said, well, they didn't give me enough. It was racism. It was discrimination, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that really washes. And again, Chris Rock is picking up on this because he goes into explaining, yes, sometimes it's in lawsuits and sometimes people say something that you don't really like, but mature people can go on. So let's listen to this next bit. Why don't we? Robot. Don't know where they're so racist. They wanted to know how baby was going to be. The sole racist, they want to know how. I love how he's mocking Meghan. I think it's so great, and so I had to cut this up a bit because of how everything came together. So listen to this last bit of the clip. Just so racist, they wanted to know how brown going to be like. Racist. 'Cause even black. Do you know what you also saw in that clip? With a lot of African Americans are in that audience, and he's identifying that the comment that Meghan is so laid against the royal family is so baseless, because guess what? Everybody wants to know what the color of your baby might be if you're an interracial couple, or even just a general couple. Like my parents both have natural brown hair and I ended up with it as a blonde, and even I have a cousin. Her daughter has really long hair. Like I do, is pretty fair, like I am, and my cousin was like, oh my gosh, you guys look so much alike. We're just wondering where this came from, and I have blue eyes. My parents more have brown hazel eyes, and so I was a bit of an aberration within my family, and you just wonder, well, where did this come from? Was this part of our Irish ancestry or Norwegian Andrews, something like that? And I think that's a natural question if you're in a relationship with a redhead. Will your child be a redhead? That's a question. And I think Meghan put such a horrifically bad spin on what was probably a very innocent comment, which was probably a very innocent question, and she did this to malign the whole institution because she think it away her child was not automatically made a prince, and he was offered the child, the Earl of Dumbarton. And she didn't want that child because they had the word dumb in. And I think we know, based on Harry's intelligence, what we've seen in the last couple days, I think that would have been used probably pretty liberally against Archie. So it was probably a good idea. So I love that the charge is revealed for what it was: weak. Meghan just happened to say that at a time where that just ignited things. Absolutely. But we're in 2023 now, it's not 2021 anymore. We've gotten past some of the George Floyd stuff, and so people are evaluating her comments differently, and they're thinking to themselves, you know what? It's not a terrible comment to make if you're just wondering what your children will look like. And as it turns out, her children are very fair. They look pretty white, so it wasn't even a big, huge question, but Meghan wanted to malign the royal institution. She wanted to malign the royal family, and she wanted to make sure that her relationship, what was left of it, was probably not much at all with the Queen and Prince Phil, because again, she desperately wanted those titles for her kids, so she was willing to trash everybody else. In the vain hope that if she could maybe getting good with the Queen would retroactively protect her kids and the possibility of titles or something. I don't know what she was thinking, because it's come back to bite her, because when you make an allegation like that, you need to be able to back it up, and Harry and Meghan in the interview, they disagreed on what happened. Meghan said it was a couple of times while she was pregnant. Harry said the question was asked once while they were dating. So I think as well they get things so twisted up in their own heads because they just talk to each other and they analyze social media and they just get each other riled up all the time. So you can think of the avocado situation. They're still missed about that. You think about comparing Kate and Meghan when it came to holding their baby bump. Kate touched hers a time or two. Meghan clutched as if she was carrying the Messiah and people noticed, and Harry and Meghan got mad that people noticed and they ascribed it to racism and hatred, not just the fact that we can obviously see that Meghan, you are making a production sideshow out of bump clutching. You've taken it to a whole another level, and Kate barely touched hers except for a time or two. And so Harry and Meghan just aren't completely in a deluded land. So and then this in comment, and I thought this initially at the time too got so drummed up in their own minds that they didn't even recognize it as something that was rather innocuous and said they had to ascribe this huge slide to it. I feel like we're seeing the fruition to that of that coming, and the rest of the world looking at them now just doesn't totally agree with the conclusions they made, because they made some pretty damaging conclusions and accusations which most of the world initially I think somewhat bought into, but 2 years on, because it's been about 2 years since the interview aired, now we really believe it anymore, and that's a really bad thing for Harry. Meghan, like Marco, I loaded the backdrop. Girl trying to be accepted, by the way. And no. So we did go into it one last little bit about her. I love his Mario Margaret and talking about how she maybe struggled to get accepted into the real family, and then he reverses and say it's more difficult for a white girl to integrate into a black family. Which I thought again was really funny, and his whole audience was cracking up. Everybody was laughing at this because I think at the end of the day, people now feel justified and going, you know what? I don't buy into the Meghan Markle thing anymore. I don't buy into her allegations. I've seen how the royal family has treated her with nothing but grace despite the situation. Yes, they got kicked out of Frogmore and everything, but, hey, you know, for the most part the royal family has been very generous to her. So why is she complaining? What is she going on about? And so Meghan made the critical, unbelievably dumb mistake of making an accusation that she could not back up again. I think Harry and Meghan live in their own little deluded fantasy. So I'm sure she fully and completely believed what she was saying to a certain extent. I think Meghan Markle probably knew she was spinning a tall tale, but it worked for the moment. It was the perfect moment to make an accusation like that. People just don't buy it anymore, and I think that's why we're seeing Harry and Meghan in a free fall. We're seeing them in a complete and total likability free fall, and they only have themselves to blame. The Netflix reality show Dinner didn't help them at all, and Harry's book didn't help them at all. They've told us time and time again, we want to get our story out there. We want people to see us for who we really are. We don't want to see the press intrude or anything. And Meghan has said multiple times in different things. And I think once in Netflix, and I think it's something else that people don't know the real me. Yeah, honey, we do, and we're not impressed. And I think Meghan and Harry, if they're not absolutely in crisis mode right now, they should be. They really should be, and apparently maybe they were, because Tyler Perry flew in for the weekend to chat with Harry, Meghan, and iSource News, which I'm not totally 100% saying that it's the best source of information, but they did point out something really interesting, which is that apparently Meghan and Tyler came to some sort of agreement that he may help or produce some things that Harry might be a little jealous because Tyler is getting a bit too close, and I could see a lot of those things. There's some of it that did make sense to me, because Meghan should be in crisis mode. She should call in Tyler Perry to help her, because I don't think anybody else is going to in Hollywood. I think they've made themselves so persona non grata because they've revealed things about people. They've talked about their family, they've talked about their friends, Harry talking about Courtney Cox and that she had magic mushrooms in her house, or that he took magic mushrooms and other drugs in her home. You know what she did when she saw them at a birthday party, which must have been 11th birthday party, which I'm surprised she was there. She hadn't talked to him. And she just want to say, well, I just didn't want to bother him. She brushed it off to a certain extent, but you could also see words like I don't want to talk to people I can't trust. I don't want to talk to people that just will reveal things about me. I don't want revealed, stayed in my home and took illegal substances in my home. Why would I want to talk about them here? He could have just said a friend he was staying at a friend's house. A celebrity sound, something giving it a name saying was Courtney Cox's house means that she's now a focus of a media too, that she has to answer questions about it and don't think of those things. They think solely of themselves at all times, and because of that, they can't see their own mistakes, their own hypocrisy, all these sorts of things, but we see all of it. And so when somebody like Chris Rock goes, you know what the royal family said asking about the skin color of the baby wasn't really racist. People applaud because it's like, finally somebody is calling her out. Somebody is going through and identifying the things that don't make sense and giving us who feel like we've been trying to talk and push against Meghan Markle and her dangerous narrative. It gives us some relief to note that yes, other people in the world see it too, because it's so hard sometimes to go, oh, I feel like when we sees it and we understands that, why are people not seeing the truth of the situation? But the truth sometimes takes time, and I think this is what's coming home to roost for Harry and Meghan, is that they told too many lies, they told too many inconsistencies. They can't keep their stories free, and they also think that they are the saviors of humanity, that their love story is the greatest thing since Romeo and Juliet. They haven't been married 5 years yet. We have no clue if they're going to make it, and I thought it was interesting as well as that the iSource News also said that Harry was getting a little jealous of how close Tyler Perry is to Meghan, and I think to Harry, yeah, you should be jealous because she seems to jump from guy to guy, and her jumping to Tyler Perry would not be a shock because he's much smarter than he is. And I think Meghan, although she's not as smart as she thinks she is, Harry's dumb as a brick, and so I think that's probably really starting to annoy her. And he has a lot more money than Harry does. There was again another interesting report from Tom Bauer talking about Meghan's frustration that Harry wasn't worth more money, and it's like, well, I could told Meghan that Harry was going to be worth much money because he's a royal and they just don't generally have access to tons of liquid cash. It's more homes, property, furniture, paintings, those sorts of things, some things that they can't even sell. So this idea in Meghan's mind that she was going to marry a billionaire, and it didn't happen. And at the end of the day, Meghan doesn't have any talent to pull off her grand ambition. So what can she do? Well, she can jump to the next guy who has more money, who's gullible, who falls to her charms. That is what she is going. We don't know anything else Harry and Meghan are doing with Netflix. We have no future thing coming up except for the Invictus Games documentary, and it's taking them a long time. I feel like to produce content more time than it should for the amount of money they're being paid. I'm sure Spotify, Netflix are frustrated, and Spotify has not renewed a season 2 of Archetype since also come out that Meghan Markle's trademark request was denied. Which of course it would have been because it's a dumb name. And it was not unique enough. It's not an unique enough thing for Meghan Markle to trademark. And so, that this all is falling apart, I think is not a surprise, because I mentioned this in a Twitter person, and I will end on this, is that Meghan and Harry, especially Meghan, the sole motivation is money, and people who are solely motivated by money and don't really have any talent to back it up. You could say Elon Musk is solely motivated by money, but he's not. He's interested in addition to making money and making other things, making the world better, changing things, doing different things, making it easier to travel to Mars. You might hate the guy, but you have to admit he came up. He has helped grow a lot of businesses. Been very innovative in a lot of different ways. Same thing with Mark Zuckerberg, you know, Jeff Bezos. These guys have made a lot of money, but they made a lot of money. But in the process, they've also grown huge businesses because of their intellect and talent and drive, and Harry and Meghan have dry bits to one thing: money, so they'll do anything to make more money. So because everything is money driven, I don't think they have a lot to offer, and I think Hollywood is finding that out, and I think the protection that Harry and Meghan thought they could have with Hollywood has disintegrated. Chris Rock is not the first. There'll be more. South Park started it. It'll just continue, it'll just grow and grow and grow, because Harry and Meghan, they made the crucial mistake of going into an industry where, yes, a lot of it is about who you know, your influence, your profile and everything. But you also need to have some talent. You need to be, generally, a nice person, and you shouldn't lob accusations against people that you can't substantiate, because at some point people are going to wonder if you're going to do the same thing to them. So everybody is going to keep their distance for the foreseeable future. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of the Chris Rock Takedown and